So welcome to the 40th anniversary celebration of the WilmerHale Legal Services Center at Harvard Law School. Yeah, exactly. Now, here's a number that when I think about it, it makes sense, but it's kind of stunning. 40 years training more than 4,000 attorneys and law students and giving high quality pro bono civil legal services to thousands of Greater Boston's most vulnerable citizens. That is a very big deal. So let's give another round of applause for LSC. Now, earlier today at the LSC, a lot of you attended a series of really great roundtable discussions about the Bellow-Charn model of clinical education, economic justice, and community partnership. And this is a great moment to think about that and think about the past and look ahead to the new challenges for clinical education and for the delivery of legal services. The Legal Services Center is a really dynamic learning environment for students because, let's face it, they engage in real-world lawyering. They do so on behalf of community members who face legal crises, and they work on issues as far-ranging as housing, consumer rights, domestic violence, disability, veterans' rights, and even tax issues. It's one of the largest clinical placement sites at the law school with 80 to 100. 800 would be nice. 80 to 100 enrolled students every academic year. I know from talking to our students and to our teachers in the clinic, our students get deeply immersed in the work and learn how to use the law to create positive legal change. They do that through individual representation, and they do that through cutting-edge legal cases. It's great to be here tonight. I'm afraid it's our reunion weekend, and I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole evening. But it's just great to be in a room with such a terrific team of lawyers and advocates and administrators and community partners and students. All of you make up the LSC community, and it's great to be joined by so many LSC student and staff alums who've gathered here to mark this really special occasion. So I won't talk for very long, although maybe you think I've already done so. But soon we will hear from our keynote speaker and special guest, Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey, and she'll be introduced by Dan Nagin, whom I'll introduce a little bit later, the faculty director of the Legal Services Center. And we're so honored to have Attorney General Healey joining us here this evening. I'm also thrilled to be joined by Congressman Joe Kennedy, our alum, class of 2009, who's a champion for expanding access to legal education. Are you here, Representative Kennedy? Was here. He was here. We were happy to be joined by Representative Kennedy. We're delighted that Dick Marbs, the president of the Board of Directors of Disabled American Veterans Charitable Services Trust, is here. Is Dick? Oh, Dick, thank you. Glad that you're here. The partnership and generosity of DAV and of Dick Marbs has been absolutely essential to the success of the Veterans Legal Clinic, and we're very grateful for all your support. Jeanne Charn, class of 1970, where are you? Jeanne, hello, there you are, right next to Dan. Okay. Senior lecturer in law and one of the important members, one of the important people in the Harvard Law School history, in the history of this law school. In 1979, she helped found the Legal Services Center with her husband, the late Gary Bellow, class of 1960. And we're incredibly grateful to you, Jeanne, and to Gary for the vision that you brought and for the decades of leadership that you've brought to the law school. So thank you so much for all that you've contributed and all that you continue to contribute to HLS. Now, I also want to acknowledge the many representatives of WilmerHale, and that includes the managing partner, Susan Murley. Where are you, Susan? And is Bill Lee here? Where's Bill Lee? And Bill Lee, who will be here shortly. You know, WilmerHale has had a long-standing partnership, of course, with LSC, and we're enormously, enormously grateful. I see lots of partners here. We're enormously grateful for the support that WilmerHale has given to the center and to our students over the years. Okay, so this evening, I'm just giving you a preview. I'm not handing these out, but I'm going to say that we're going to honor tonight the recipients of the Bellow-Charn Champions of Justice Awards, which has been established as part of this celebration, as part of the 40th anniversary celebration. And I want to take a moment now to acknowledge each honoree, and we'll learn more about these extraordinary award recipients later in the program. So they're all in the front row, and so would you raise your hand when I mention your name. So the first is Blake Strode, JD, class of 2015, who will receive the there you go, Blake. Blake will receive the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Emerging Leader Award. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's... Passageway Brigham and Women's Hospital will receive the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Community Partner Award. So let's give a big hand to Passageway. And John F. Cogan Jr., Jack Cogan, class of 1952. And John D. Hamilton, the class of 1960, will together receive the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Legacy Award. John Hamilton wasn't able to join us in person, but we hope that he's watching, and we're delighted that members of his family are here to accept the award on his behalf. So our thanks to Jack and to John. We're so grateful and proud of all of your contributions and accomplishments. So now I have, the next thing I have to do is another great pleasure, and that's to introduce my friend and colleague and partner, Dan Nagin, who is the clinical professor of law and faculty director of the Legal Services Center. And one other thing that I'll mention as part of the introduction, he's been providing superb leadership here at Harvard Law School since 2012. Very soon after he arrived, Dan founded the Veterans Clinic at LSC and has done just an amazing job building the clinic and helping both local veterans and veterans all over the country with their legal needs. It's an amazing, amazing clinic. Our students love it, and it does fantastic work, and we're very grateful for that. He's also a passionate advocate for clinical education and a really thoughtful legal reformer and administrator, not only through his role at LSC, but Dan and I served together on a committee on experiential learning a few years ago, and he had unbelievable insight, and I'm so delighted that when I became dean, he was already the vice dean for experiential and clinical education at HLS, and we worked very closely together to make the clinics ever better and to try to make sure that we're always on the cutting edge of clinical education. And so without further delay, I give you my friend, Dan Nagin.
Thank you, Dean Manning, for those very thoughtful remarks and warm welcome to everyone here. We know you have a very busy day and an evening, and we just know that we're so grateful that you're sharing in this moment with us. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I am so pleased to be standing before you, and I'm just grateful that this special gathering has come together with you all here. As Dean Manning noted, some of you who are here and then many others who couldn't stay for the full day were part of some really fabulous conversations in Jamaica Plain where we talked about pressing topics related to justice work and legal education and the sometimes intersection of those two topics. And I'm so very, very privileged to be part of this community. And it's really wonderful to look out in this room and to think about the gathering we had in Jamaica Plain today, and to see how we all come from slightly different places. Some of us are students, some of us are teachers, some of us are lawyers, some of us are non-lawyers, some of us work in the private bar, some of us work in public interest organizations, some of us are in government. We all come from slightly different places, but we all share something together, which I'll talk about in a moment. Let me offer a few words of welcome to echo Dean Manning's remarks just a bit. I want to welcome our awardees who are in various places around the room. More about them later, as Dean Manning noted. I also want to give a warm welcome to all the incredible public servants from the Office of Attorney General Maura Healey. Thank you for being here. More about the incredible work of our Attorney General again later in the evening. And I also want to welcome the many Hale and Dorr and WilmerHale people who are here today as we mark both the 40th anniversary of the Legal Services Center, but also the 25th anniversary of our collaboration with the firm. And so I should really highlight as well that we have WilmerHale to thank for today's gathering. WilmerHale is the sponsor of our events today, and the firm's generous support and enthusiasm is so meaningful to our work. We are very grateful, and thank you. Thank you to all of everyone from WilmerHale. But this is more than a thank you. We're also going to spend some time this evening talking about a deep connection between the firm and the Legal Services Center and what that actually means on the ground for people who have unmet legal needs. Last, I want to give a warm welcome to everyone else in the room. You may not have fit into any of the prior categories that I mentioned, but you are still warmly welcomed. And what I'm going to assume is that by your presence here, that you care deeply about justice. That you care deeply about justice for those who are disempowered, for those whose rights are easily trampled, for those for whom the legal system simply does not work. Indeed, many of the conversations earlier in Jamaica Plain today described that context and exchanged ideas about how to change it. And so, of course, the challenge is how best to pursue these goals and with what tools and resources. Change can come about through many different paths, and the law and lawyers and law schools are just pieces of a much larger and more complex puzzle. So where and how do we fit in? How can we best make a difference? One of my favorite quotes from Gary Bellow, and there are many from which to choose, as many of you in this room know, is actually not explicitly about the law or lawyers or even legal education. But it is one of my favorite quotes just the same, and it's the following. Reaching out to and on behalf of others is the way that you find out who you really are. It is the way that you express and realize the possibilities of your own humanity. It is the way you keep faith with those who went before you and those who will follow. That powerful quote, I think, is particularly apt today as we look back, but we look ahead. As we ask what has been done and also what can be done. And finally, and I think this was a point that came up a lot today in our conversations in Jamaica Plain, as we remind ourselves how much we draw strength and meaning when we help others and together seek justice. So we'd now like to show you a short video that provides really a very small window into LSE's work. And though it may be a small window, I hope the video brings to life in some small way what that quote from Gary tried to capture. There are absolutely enduring principles to the work that we do. Gary and Jeanne's vision
There'll be somewhere to put your coat down.
Continues to guide us today.
So he just wants to know if we still want to go in front of the judge. So the whole idea was being in low-income communities. One of my good friends said, Gary Bello's coming here. I said, who's he? He said, oh, he's Mr. Legal Services. Everybody wants to be like him. Reception area right there. We needed a copier, and the guy came to deliver it, and he said, I'm supposed to be delivering this to Harvard. I'm not leaving this here. And he took the Xerox machine and took it back.
You know, you might be in a law school class and think that you have the most brilliant argument in legal history, and you get to the Legal Service Center and the client says, I've already tried that before, and I think you need to move it around a bit. And being able to be humble and receptive and doing what's best for your client.
You're actually starting to make that cut in a surgery.
What I was planning on doing for today is just give you...
And you've got to figure out what to do when you've got to help.
Being in it is so much more interesting than reading appellate cases.
Mr. Lynch is a Vietnam veteran because of Agent Orange. He's in constant pain.
He does ice them, that's the only thing.
Every couple hours, in order to keep the pain at a manageable level, he has to dip his legs in buckets of ice.
Students choose to be here. They want to serve others. They want to learn about this area of law. So they come ready and willing to embrace the work that we're doing. Because of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress that Mr. Lynch was experiencing, he was processed out with an other than honorable discharge. When Mr. Lynch went to the VA, they told him that they couldn't help him.
They're interviewing clients, they're drafting documents, they're in court. And the idea is that they'll get enough variety of cases that they literally can do everything.
We have 5 clinics at the Legal Services Center, and they focus on housing law, predatory lending, tax law, family law, domestic violence, and veterans law and disability benefits. Some of our advocacy in very strategic ways is undertaken at a national level. Former students here have come back to the center in order to launch their project with the support of a fellowship.
I came to law school to work on racial justice issues. I had the good luck to be a student in the clinic here working on predatory subprime mortgage litigation. That was the model for the work that I wanted to do.
Actually used bankruptcy law to their advantage.
For-profit colleges have been ripping off students for at least as long as there's been federal money flowing into higher education. That's really outrageous, and I think that outrage is really motivating.
ITT Technical Institutes is permanently shutting down.
One of the things that I learned in being a student here is that you can provide legal services in a way that really helps a lot of people, not just a few people, and in doing that, attack the fundamental unfairness of what our clients are up against.
Our housing clinic, our lawyers, our students provide a very, very powerful force to fight against gentrification, exploitation, and economic injustice.
How long have you been in your apartment, Eddie? 40 years. 40 years.
Maureen McDonough from the Legal Services Center in Jamaica Plain.
I mean, one party has all of the power and one party doesn't. Okay, so I have 7 interrogatories and 1 document request.
Do not sign any agreement if you don't understand what you are agreeing to do. The atmosphere that we wanted to develop in the office, and I think that to a large extent we did, was everyone cared, or that Gary cared, or that I cared, what you did and how you did.
Regarding repairs on various conditions of disrepair, but if they don't exist, then if they don't exist, then
that you could always do better than what you were doing.
Hi, Therese. It's Annie calling from the Legal Services Center.
We're nimble, we're flexible, we're open to change. It's the way we practice.
You know, a lot of the time, you go in there with your plan, you want to figure this out and get this information from your client to help build your case. And that's what you're thinking about in law school, right? Your legal strategy, what arguments you're going to make. But, I think I spend about half my time in these interviews just sitting there and being like, I hear your story.
That was in May and June of 1969. Dr. was totally surrounded. Could have annihilated us anytime they wanted to. They gave out 200 of them patches, and I got one. We were the people who were there.
I was hoping that 40, 50 years after Vietnam, we would have taken care of our veterans from that war. The one group that everyone agrees on is still not getting the help that they need. This kind of points to larger problems in how we organize our society and how we allocate our resources. Especially the one on curriculum, you're reading these cases. The judges summarize the facts really neatly for you. All of these stories that we're reading about happened to real people. This clinic really connects you to that.
I would recommend this place to anybody who is a veteran.
I feel incredibly privileged to get to do what I do. There are days when people trust us with secrets that they haven't even told their closest family members. But I'm incredibly privileged to get to be here.
Like the teaching hospital. This was the people who had to fight every day to make a living and for whom the law has never been particularly open.
In 10 years, when I look back at law school, I'll say that this is the most meaningful thing I did. You know, not learning about this constitutional doctrine, but being able to say, like, look, these are real people who really served, made real sacrifices for our country, and I had the chance to help them when they needed it.
We've been really good at making adjustments and kind of, jigging and jogging as we need to, depending on what the needs are, and really maintaining a vibrant learning environment for our students and meeting the needs of the community. It doesn't get better than that.
I'm now very pleased to introduce Felicia Ellsworth of WilmerHale. Felicia is a member of the firm's appellate and Supreme Court litigation group and the business trial group. A former clerk on the First Circuit Court of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court, Felicia is a highly regarded litigator with a wide-ranging practice. I've gotten to know Felicia a bit in her role as also co-chair of WilmerHale's Pro Bono and Community Service Committee, where she's been a champion for many causes on behalf of those with unmet legal needs. And just to be clear, Felicia's role is not just committee work, but it's lawyering work, and her own pro bono docket has included playing a lead role in the firm's representation as co-counsel with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the litigation challenging the constitutionality of DOMA, leading to the historic Supreme Court ruling favoring marriage equality. Indeed, her pro bono commitments have also included representing individuals seeking asylum based on religious and gender persecution, and individuals appealing their criminal convictions and sentences. The Legal Services Center has had the privilege of working closely with various predecessors of Felicia over the years who have led the firm's Pro Bono and Community Service Committee, and we could not be more pleased to write this next chapter in LSC's pro bono partnership with WilmerHale and to work going forward with Felicia and her esteemed colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Felicia Ellsworth.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, all of you, for being here tonight. What an amazing video that was. Really brought it all to life. I'm so pleased to be here on behalf of WilmerHale and all my colleagues who are here tonight and those who couldn't join us to celebrate this wonderful anniversary, both of the 40th anniversary of the Legal Services Center and, of course, the 25th anniversary of the partnership between our firm and the Legal Services Center that Dan and Dean Manning mentioned. We're all really in such awe of the great work that is being done over the Legal Services Center, and we're just privileged to be a part of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of the firm's involvement with the center, but before I do that, I do want to thank some and recognize some distinguished alums who are here with us. Of course, Jack Cogan, who we'll be hearing from later and who we heard on the video, and John Hamilton, who, as Dean Manning said, couldn't make the trip, but we hope is joining us from home. WilmerHale alumna and Attorney General Maura Healey, who's of course here, and we're looking forward to her remarks, and all of the other WilmerHale and Hale and Dorr alumni and current attorneys who are here tonight to help us celebrate. You know, when the firm in 1993 decided to make this, what was at the time a really sort of groundbreaking and historic commitment to partner with the Legal Services Center, it was important that it not just be a donation for the bricks and mortars of the building, which, as you saw in the video, is actually quite lovely and a nice upgrade from when the copiers were getting returned. But it was important, particularly to the leaders like John Hamilton and like Jack Cogan, that the firm's dedication and commitment to pro bono services continue on with a partnership with the Service Center that has been deeply rewarding to those of us at the firm that have worked with the dedicated and talented lawyers and staff at the Legal Services Center, as well as, of course, the law students, and to the access to justice issues and the individual representations that we've been able to take on as a result. And so it wasn't just the donation of a building that was the idea behind this partnership. It was truly what has become a 25-year partnership and what we're looking forward to being a longstanding partnership with the Legal Services Center in the future to continue the good work that they've been doing. Now, as I said, it was not particularly usual to have a partnership like this in 1993 when it first came about. But for those of us at WilmerHale and at the time Hale and Dorr, the idea of a focus on access to justice issues and the emphasis on a need for access to legal services for those who can't afford it was not particularly novel. And we think back to one of our first managing partners, Reginald Heber-Smith, who was the author of a book called Justice in the Poor that's really sort of recognized as galvanizing the private firm community in recognizing the need for access to justice issues as sort of part of our core values and our core culture at the firm, of the importance to us as lawyers in ensuring access to justice for everyone. We also, around the same time, were one of the charter signatories of the ABA's Pro Bono Challenge, in which we have committed to contribute at least 5% of the firm's annual revenue to pro bono legal services every year. In 2018, that translated to the firm devoting 122,000 lawyer hours to pro bono legal services. And to give you a sense of what that means, we worked the numbers out on, it's the equivalent of 61 full-time lawyers billing 2,000 hours in 2018 to pro bono clients alone. So it wasn't really that unusual for us 25 years ago to think about ensuring this ongoing partnership and following in the footsteps of leaders like John Hamilton, Jack Cogan, Reginald Heber-Smith, who have made this a mainstay of the firm's core culture and core values, and one that we're proud to continue to live through today. Some of the types of cases and partnerships that we've had the opportunity to have with the Legal Services Center. You heard about some of them on the video, not necessarily firm-specific cases, but the types of work that we do. But we've also tried to support the Legal Services Center in other ways. We've provided training to some of the summer interns. We've embedded firm partners over at the Legal Services Center. Jack Regan, retired partner and my predecessor as chair of the Pro Bono Committee, is there now, and hopefully some of you had the privilege today of hearing from him on the panel. Rob Tuckman's here tonight. Hugh Jones is here tonight. Rich Johnston is here tonight, all of whom have served as partners at the firm who also spent a lot of their time and effort at the Legal Services Center and helping to advance the good works that are being done there. And we're also really proud of some of the pro bono cases that we've been able to do in partnership with the staff and the law students at the Legal Services Center. And I thought I would just mention one tonight to try and put a little face on the name. There was a case that we recently had success with in partnership with the Legal Services Center, where there was a veteran who'd been discharged with an other than honorable discharge because she had a so-called personality disorder. Now, the reality was that she was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder because of a sexual assault that she had suffered. And WilmerHale lawyers and Legal Services Center lawyers together were able to get that discharge upgraded to an honorable status, restoring her honor, bringing her closure, and providing some measure of justice. That's just one example of thousands and thousands of more examples of the types of individuals who have had their lives immeasurably improved by being able to have access to the legal services and the assistance of the people at the Legal Services Center and the dedicated staff and lawyers and law students that work there. And we're so proud to have been a part of it for these past 25 years, and we're so looking forward to being a part of it in the future. So as we look forward to that continued collaboration, on behalf of everyone at WilmerHale, those here tonight and those not, I do want to congratulate Jack Cogan and John Hamilton for their vision and their leadership 25 years ago, and to congratulate all of the Legal Services Center staff and students for a wonderful event today and for a great event tonight and for all of the good works that you've been doing in the past and will be doing in the future. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of it.
Thank you, Felicia. It's so great to share this moment with you and your WilmerHale and Hallandor colleagues. I'm going to just pause for a moment because I want to thank the current colleagues of mine at the Legal Services Center, and I asked them not to applaud, but asked the rest of us to applaud the current staff of the Legal Services Center. I asked you to applaud for a number of, I didn't tell you why you were applauding, by the way, but you just applauded, which is interesting. The reason that I asked you to applaud is because, you know, an institution is not a building, it's the people, right? An organization, it's the people who make the difference. And my incredible, terrific colleagues and the absolutely breathtakingly talented students we are privileged to teach, they make any good things possible, including today's events, which have been very meaningful to me, and I know they've been very, very meaningful to others who have participated, and I think it's important that we acknowledge the incredible talent of the team at the Legal Services Center. And as I look around the room, and there are people who've been at the center for decades, and there are people who've been at the center for 6 months, but everyone has a shared, deep sense of mission and commitment, and it makes the stories that you saw in the video possible. We're now going to turn to the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Awards. These awards give us the opportunity to recognize those unique people and programs who both make our work possible and to inspire us. And indeed, these awards also tell a story of sorts about our history, our present, but also, importantly, our future. And so the awards that we present this evening are the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Emerging Leader Award, the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Community Partner Award, and then the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Legacy Award. So we're going to begin with the Emerging Leader Award, and I would like to call to the podium my LSE colleague, who was also depicted in the video, Maureen McDonough, who is Senior Clinical Instructor and Director of the Housing Clinic and LSE's Managing Attorney. And for those who don't know Maureen, she is one of the most generous colleagues and one of the most thoughtful and caring clinical teachers you will find anywhere. Maureen.
Thank you, Dan. 5 years ago, when I was working on Blake Strode's application for a Skadden Fellowship, and I was writing a letter for him, little did I know that a mere 4 years later, he would be, the Skadden Foundation application I was working on was for him to work at Arch City Defenders in St. Louis. And little did I know that a mere 4 years later, he would be the executive director of that storied agency. Little did I know, but maybe I had some inkling, that Blake would be leading a very public and very visible legal efforts in St. Louis to protect the poor and people of color from injustice in the legal system there. In the past year alone, Arch City has filed lawsuits to close what is in effect debtor's prison in St. Louis, to challenge the cash bail system there that adversely affects the poor and people of color, and to prevent kettling arrests, where the police essentially round up everybody who's at a protest and arrest everyone, even those who aren't doing anything wrong. As a Skadden Foundation Fellow, and then as a staff attorney, and then soon after as executive director of Arch City Defenders, you, Blake, have powerfully carried forward the legacy of our founders by combining an unwavering commitment to community lawyering, to anti-poverty work, and to anti-racial work. And to continue building, you have modeled for other students and new lawyers what it means to be a public interest lawyer and a civil rights leader. Just as the values of Gary Bellow and Jeanne Charn continue to guide us today, your example of passionate and creative advocacy is an inspiration to us all. And I'm getting a little, For all the work you've done, and for the promise of work you'll be doing in the future, we award Blake Strode the Bellow-Charn Champions of Justice Emerging Leaders Award.
Getting me a little choked up, too. Well, they told me 2 minutes, so I promise I will be brief. This is such an incredible, incredible honor. I second Dan's comments about how generous a person Maureen is. She was an incredible teacher and mentor. Thank you for that incredibly kind introduction. I also want to thank Julia, who's in the room somewhere, Julia Devanthry, who also, give her a round of applause, please. She was also such an important part of my clinical experience, and they really, Maureen and Julia together, made it really a life-changing experience. I want to thank Dan and everyone at LSC, anyone who had anything to do with my unlikely selection for this award. I'm really, really grateful. The only other thing I want to say is that I'd really like to dedicate this to a few groups. First, to my colleagues at Arch City Defenders. We have a team of 22 incredibly devoted and creative and passionate advocates. And whether they're lawyers or paralegals, communications folks, we describe our entire team as advocates. And I get a lot of the credit now for incredible work that they're doing every day, and so I really want to dedicate this award to them. I also want to dedicate it to our clients. I said earlier today, and I really meant it, that our clients are what inspires us every day to do the work that we do. It's what causes us to push further, and truly without them and their courage, we wouldn't exist and our work wouldn't exist. And then lastly, I want to dedicate this to everyone, activists, protesters, everyday people who have raised their voices, taken to the streets, particularly in my hometown, in the Ferguson uprising, without which our work would not have the urgency that it has taken on, the impact, and the multifaceted range that we've been able to give it because of our partnerships with organizers and activists. And so I dedicate this award to all of those folks. Thank you all again. Thank you so much to the Legal Services Center. Have a good night.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present the Bellow-Charn Championship of Justice Community Partner Award. This award recognizes exceptional and enduring contributions by a community partner to the mission of the Legal Services Center and is being given to the Passageway Program and at the Brigham and Women's Hospital for its part in the Passageway Health Law Collaborative. The partnership between Passageway and LSC began around 2005 and is a powerful model of how the healthcare communities and the legal services communities can work together to address the critical and complex needs of victims and survivors of domestic violence. Passageway's commitment to LSC's pro bono mission, as well as to our joint efforts to generate creative solutions and responses to the domestic violence crisis, is extraordinary. Unfortunately, the statistics related to domestic violence are not abating. Still today, 1 of every 4 women and 1 of 7 men are victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is an ongoing crisis that we continue to work hard to combat. To that end, each year, the Passageway Health Law Collaborative serves over 100 clients, many of whom have multiple legal issues. The attorneys at LSC work very closely with the advocates at Passageway to ensure that our mutual clients get their legal needs met in a safe, supportive, and holistic manner. Passageway advocates accompany our clients to court to support them as we run around doing our little lawyerly things. Passageway advocates help our clients put into perspective the effect of court orders so that the clients can find ways to continue doing the things necessary for their and their family's survival, such as working, taking care of their children, going to school. Passageway advocates help us understand where our clients are coming from, why certain decisions might be affecting them in certain ways, or why they are behaving in certain ways. This additional perspective allows us to negotiate more effectively and craft more nuanced agreements that better meet our clients' needs and interests. Without the partnership with Passageway, we would be just another important, but not nearly as effective, group of lawyers plugging away at a seemingly never-ending problem. But the great news is that we do have the Passageway Health Law Collaborative, now in its 15th year, and it is stronger than ever. The less good news, and sometimes discouraging news, is that now, in its 15th year, the need for the Passageway Health Law Collaborative is still as strong as ever. And in this environment, especially, where there even has to be a debate about whether to renew the Violence Against Women Act and strengthen domestic violence laws in this country, we recognize and value that we continue to need our partnership to stay stronger than ever. So, as Maureen mentioned, just as the values of Gary Bellow and Jeanne Charn continue to guide us today, Passageway's example of passionate advocacy, thoughtful partnership, and unwavering dedication to interdisciplinary work continues to inspire us. And with that, it's my great pleasure and honor to present the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Community Partner Award to the Passageway Program of the Brigham and Women's Hospital. On behalf of the Passageway Program and all of its wonderful advocates, here to accept the award is Marty Chadwick Balcom, Director of Violence, Intervention, and Prevention Programs at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. But before she comes up, I just want to acknowledge also Jessica Loftus from the Passageway Program at the Faulkner. I value the work that I do with you and your colleagues, as well as the warm relationships that have been forged over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. I just want to say on behalf of Jess and all the advocates who are not here with us today, thank you so much for this honor. It is our pleasure. And I have to say we wouldn't be as effective as the program that we are today without the partnership that we've had with Legal Services. And I just have to, too many names. I really did not prepare anything, as you can tell. I really have to give a shout out to Sarah Boonen for founding this incredibly innovative and amazing partnership. And to Nana and to Stephanie for the amazing day-to-day work that they do. And as someone who has the privilege of working with an amazing staff who are working directly with the clients and knowing the impact that having a trauma-informed, educated lawyer, and I am a lawyer by training, not a Harvard-educated lawyer, but a lawyer by training, starting my work the first 10 years of my career doing much of what these guys are doing. This makes all the difference, having lawyers in this partnership to actually be able to work with our clients in this kind of way. And the successes that we've been able to have and the number of clients we've had over the last 15 years have been just incredible. And I'm so grateful to be part of this, and I know all of our advocates, and on behalf of folks at Brigham and Women's Hospital, people will say to us, wait, how do you have that partnership? That's really amazing, and how do we get some of that? So it's something that is coveted, and we do want to feel like expanding, and I think it's something that is very special, and we will continue to honor that and be very grateful. So thank you for this honor. We're very blessed.
We now turn to the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Legacy Award, for which there are co-recipients. This award is shared by two remarkable men whose vision, generosity, and leadership continue to inspire us, Jack Cogan and John Hamilton. We are thrilled that Jack is here today, joined by his wife, Mary. John, unfortunately, lives in a state with much better weather than can be found in New England, and for that and other reasons is unable to be here in person this evening, but we are very honored that members of John's family are here to represent him and accept the award on his behalf, and I want to recognize his daughter, Linda Hamilton, and his sister, Hope Pettigrew. And I should note, too, as I think Felicia suggested, that perhaps John is watching versus our live webcast, and so if John is watching, greetings and congratulations. Now, one of the lessons we hope the Legacy Award imparts is that once the seeds of justice are planted, they can grow roots that are deep and strong. And these roots can support not just that moment's justice work, but also tomorrow's too. in the next day, in the next day. And so it is that 25 years after Jack and John and their fellow HLS alums at Hale and Dorr took an enormous leap of faith and invested in Gary and Jeanne's vision for a new home for the Legal Services Center, that bold effort continues to pay enormous dividends in the fight for justice. So before turning to the story, which has been previewed a little bit, about Jack and John and Hale and Dorr's leadership in that critical moment in time, let me first just tell you a bit about our two awardees. Jack Cogan is a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School, and he is, as we've heard, the former chairman and managing partner of Hale and Dorr, a firm he joined in 1952 and retired from in 1999. And Jack has always been deeply involved in his community, serving on numerous boards spanning healthcare to the arts. He has also been, as we heard, a titan in his support of his alma mater, serving on the Harvard Law School Visiting Committee and as an advisor to deans over many decades. Like Jack, John Hamilton is a graduate of Harvard Law School. In fact, John, as I think we may have heard, was in the same class, the class of 1960, as Gary Bellow. John is also a veteran, having served in the US Navy prior to attending law school. John Hamilton retired from the firm in 2004, where he had been the chairman and managing partner at Hale and Dorr. And John's commitment to pro bono causes runs deep as well, spanning work in the sciences, youth and education, and environmental causes. So let's now turn to the year 1992. The Legal Services Center had occupied the same rundown building on Washington Street in Jamaica Plain for over a decade. And some of you in this room know that building well and know that not only sometimes was the center fighting on behalf of the tenant rights of clients who lived in the city of Boston, but sometimes had to exercise its own tenant rights in order to try to make that office as viable as possible. And so, given that circumstance, it was clear that the Legal Services Center needed a new place to rent, but an unexpected, as we heard, series of conversations among then Dean Robert Clark, Gary Bellow, Jeanne Charn, Jack Cogan, and John Hamilton led in a different and perhaps surprising direction. As John Hamilton later said, and I quote, "I met with Gary on a number of occasions, and I sensed that even though we had taken very different paths with our careers, we had the same value systems and saw some of the same need." John continued, "We thought that working together from two very different perspectives, his from the delivery end and ours from the resource end, could result in our offering more than a building." And so it was, with Jack and John leading the way, but also with the help of many, many others, including many of the people in this room today. Hale and Dorr and its attorneys raised the funds to purchase and renovate an abandoned building at the crossroads of Jamaica Plain and Roxbury. The same building many of us convened earlier today, many of us worked or were students or visited or received services from in some instances, and as was depicted in our video. In this building, this special place continues to be our home and continues to be a place where community members can get help in times of crisis. But the relationship is about much more than the building. Gary and Jeanne and Jack and John and their allies envisioned an actual working relationship across LSC's practice areas, something that Felicia so eloquently described. Pro bono case collaborations, pro bono case referrals, joint training opportunities, firm attorneys rotating through the Legal Services Center to do pro bono work for extended periods of time. And because of Jack Cogan and John Hamilton's enthusiasm and their foresight, that unique idea became reality. Whether meeting the legal needs of people living with chronic or terminal illness, or embedding firm attorneys in the Community Enterprise Project, the firm and the Legal Services Center have invented and reinvented a relationship that is truly unique, and in the process reached more people with more critically needed legal representation. Now, no doubt that relationship has evolved over the years as the world around us changes. But Jack and John's vision continues to inspire. Their leadership example indeed serves as a model for how the private bar can invest in civil legal services and how two disparate organizations, and let's recognize this, two different organizations, how though disparate can work together to join forces to serve the public, to help those who are vulnerable, and to use the law to pursue justice. Indeed, that was one of the themes of the conversations earlier today in Jamaica Plain about creative partnerships. So, on the occasion of the Legal Services Center 40th anniversary and the 25th anniversary of this unique partnership, I am so very pleased, honored, and privileged to present the Bellow-Charn Champion of Justice Legacy Award to Jack Cogan and John Hamilton. Please join me.
I do not have a prepared speech. I was told I did not need to say anything, but I just wanted to say my father is always such an ultimate giver that I think it's wonderful. He's a recipient of something, and I'm sure he is absolutely so thrilled that you're perpetuating the humanitarian efforts that he helped us to begin. So thank you so much.
I can imagine no better way to conclude, to culminate today's events, and indeed 40 years and 25 years, and the values we've been discussing, than by introducing our Attorney General, Maura Healey. What?
Oh, you don't need to read all that.
Yes, I'm going to.
You don't need to read.
Some of you may know Attorney General Healey, apparently. But I am nonetheless going to tell you a little bit about her. As a champion of law's role in protecting the vulnerable, and as someone who has built coalitions and partnerships with community groups and organizations across the Commonwealth, and in some cases across the nation, Attorney General Healey is an essential voice for us to hear. As many of you know, the Attorney General graduated from Howard College, and many of you also know she was the captain of the women's basketball team and played professional basketball in Europe before returning to Massachusetts to attend Northeastern University School of Law. After completing a judicial clerkship with the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts, Attorney General Healey joined what was then Wilmer Cutler Pickering Hallandor, where she rose to become a partner. And indeed, that Attorney General Healey is an alumna of WilmerHale, makes her participation in this special gathering all the more meaningful. Following her time at the firm and stints as a special assistant district attorney in Middlesex County, she joined the Attorney General's office. And as head of the office's Civil Rights Division, she was the architect of the state's successful challenge to the Federal Defense of Marriage Act and argued the case in federal court. She was sworn in as Attorney General in January of 2015 and has led the People's Law Firm with courage and conviction ever since. Attorney General Healey and her office are incredible allies in so much of the work that we do at the Legal Services Center, whether in combating predatory lending or advocating for the legal rights of underserved veterans or in countless other areas. Please join me in re-welcoming trailblazing and visionary public servant, Massachusetts General Maura Healey.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really a treat to be here, treat to be back on campus. And I thank you, Dan, for inviting me to share in today's wonderful anniversary celebration. I want to thank you personally for your leadership and your commitment, particularly to service members and veterans and their families in this community and elsewhere whom you serve so well. So not only have you done a fantastic job leading LSC, but also your particular work to support those who have served us best is really, really remarkable. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank all of the folks at the wonderful law school, and I know there were many who were here today, including Dean Manning. Thank you for your support of this important endeavor. I want to thank two colleagues that I see many represented in the room from both our Hale and Dorr days and our later iteration of WilmerHale. It's great to be back in the room with so many wonderful friends and former colleagues. Thank you, Felicia Ellsworth, for your commitment and continuing the commitment of your predecessors and always making sure that the firm made good on what was really a founding principle and ethos of the firm to provide legal services and to try to do justice in so many ways across so many fronts. And certainly this contribution made many years ago, thankfully under the stewardship and leadership, through the leadership of Jack and of John, is really another example of that. But thank you to the many of you who've lent time and direct legal services, mentoring and the like to make sure that the firm was always there. I want to also acknowledge the staff at the Legal Services Center. The lawyers, of course, the students who do the work, the clinical instructors, but I in particular want to commend the folks who work at the front desk. I know what it's like to work at the front desk at the People's Law Firm, and I really admire your grace and your courtesy and the wherewithal to every day ensure that you, along with your colleagues, recognize the dignity and the worth of every single person that calls you or walks through your door. So let's clap again for all of the great people in JP. So, Linda, back when I started at the firm, and John, you are out there somewhere, hello, you were my managing partner when I first was a summer associate along with Belinda Duran at Hale and Dorr, and you and your father, you should know, was a constant presence, walking the halls, representing the firm, continuing to shape and mold a culture that was about an unwavering commitment to both pro bono work, which he championed, and legal services, which he really demanded that the firm continue to support. And Jack, I know that you have made so many contributions to Harvard Law School, to Harvard, and certainly to the legacy of WilmerHale. And we are so lucky that you were the steward of these incredible institutions and organizations over so many decades, ensuring that your spirit of excellence and everything that you do and the way you go about everything was what was reflected in what became WilmerHale Legal Services Center. And it really is wonderful to see you, and it's wonderful to see you be honored by so many here today with this award given to you and to John. Blake, it was really inspiring to listen to what you were doing and what you have done. And there are so many people who I know are worthy of these awards. I'm sure it's a hard selection process for the committee, but the fact is you so rightly rose to the top in receiving this recognition. And I thought it was really beautiful, too, how you chose to acknowledge and remember and commemorate, celebrate this award with the groups that you selected at the end. And I think that is exactly why you are so worthy as a recipient, and I just wish you the best, and I know you're going to continue to change this world for the better. So best of luck with everything that you're doing. Incredible work in St. Louis, and I know it has effects far beyond, and it really is great to hear you today and what you've done. to the entire team at Passageway, and I saw Sarah when I walked in. I actually didn't realize, we've worked together over the years, that you started this. So cool. I am a big fan of medical legal partnerships and a holistic approach, and I want to commend the team and the work that is done at the Brigham in making this such a model medical legal partnership. It is so profoundly important and also really exponentially impactful. This is where we really see the bang for the buck in terms of services. So thank you for doing that incredibly important work. To the alums in the room, though I'm not one, I know many traveled far, some for their anniversary. It's terrific. I hope you enjoy celebrating with one another, seeing one another, and I appreciate that you took the time to come back and celebrate the role of LSC in your development as a lawyer. And in that vein, I want to acknowledge in particular, how many assistant AGs do we have who worked in Legal Services Center during their time? Okay, so we have a few in the room, and you see included among them my Chief Legal Counsel, Chief of our Environmental Protection Division, Chief of our Consumer Protection Division, my Chief of Staff, and attorneys who are in every single bureau in the current Attorney General's office. And I'm not surprised, because much of the ethos that probably drove them to work in the Attorney General's office was developed and nurtured through their work at the Legal Services Center. So I want to personally thank the Legal Services Center for making that possible. And I also had personal experience. You know, when I left WilmerHale to join the Attorney General's office, it was at the height of the subprime lending crisis. And I saw our office work hand in hand with the Legal Services Center to address issues of predatory lending, to fight unlawful foreclosures. Together, we sued mortgage originators and servicers to stop unlawful evictions and work to keep thousands of families in their homes. And not only does the Legal Services Center do work that is so impactful for individuals, but they bring the cases that result in systemic change as well. And as I was looking through tonight's program, I was struck by the number of cases that have resulted in wholesale change of the law here in Massachusetts and across the country. And I really think it is a credit to the strategic lawyering and work of the Legal Services Center. We've also partnered with you all to help students take on debt buyers who use our trial courts to harass poor and elderly residents. We funded an outreach position in the Veterans Clinic to connect underserved veterans with the benefits and services that they've earned. And a shout out to Toby Merrill and the Project on Predatory Student Lending. I think together we've sued the Betsy DeVos administration many times and won. We're going to continue to win. Thank you for your good work. So I think about what Gary Bellow and Jeanne Charn dreamed up years ago, and it really is amazing and something to celebrate. They knew then what we recognize now today, that the Legal Services Center is strong because of its ability to adapt and meet the changing needs of the time. From establishing an AIDS law clinic in the 1980s, which was no small undertaking, to addressing later the financial crisis and its impact on our families, to your nation-leading work for LGBT veterans, for survivors of domestic violence, for students crushed by debt. At every turn, you found a way to innovate and adapt and meet the current needs. And so I think today, on this anniversary celebration, it should both be a celebration, but also the opportunity to recommit to the values that brought Gary and Jeanne to this place and have seen this wonderful institution these 40 years. I don't think this work has ever been more important. Every day we see the need for legal services and the need for lawyers. A couple of weeks ago, I was down on the border. I traveled with a group of AGs. My chief of staff and alum, Mike Firestone, was with me for that trip, and we crossed into Tijuana just to see what was happening there. And you know, it was really terrible. We were meeting with an organization, a legal services organization, El Otro Lado, who together we have sued the federal government over the border wall. But we were meeting with them because we wanted to also talk about another lawsuit we're doing with them, which is around family separation. And one opportunity we had was to meet with some of the people who had fled tremendous violence from Central and South America and were literally being held unable to even be processed, to even apply for asylum. And in speaking with one teenager from Honduras, I was really struck by the fact that he had made his way all the way from Honduras, and he was alone by himself there. And it was only the lawyer he met at the border who explained to him his rights and what he was entitled to under the law. And I saw in that example just how profoundly important the role of lawyers is right now in our time, when so much when it comes to the rule of law is being challenged. I asked the organizers what they needed most, and they said lawyers. They need lawyers. There are so many people there who need assistance. And in fact, the group of lawyers we traveled with, who, by the way, are American-born and practicing lawyers, were scared that about crossing the border with us and scared that they might not be able to cross back into this country because of recent reported acts of surveillance by our own federal government. So I think these are sort of profoundly important stories to think about right now in this time, and I just encourage everybody to continue to open their eyes to what is actually happening on the border, because it does not jive in any way whatsoever with what we're hearing out of Washington. But I wasn't surprised to hear people talk about the need for lawyers. It's what I see every day. As I walk outside Ashburton Place in downtown Boston or visit our places in Springfield or New Bedford, Worcester, there are so many people across this state, across this country, who need the very services that WilmerHale Legal Services Center provides. And I just really, really appreciate the work that you are doing when it comes to housing, when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to the work you're doing around ensuring that our tax system is actually fair. There's a tremendous unfairness in this world, and you are all on the front lines in addressing this. I also know that a couple things too, and I just want to offer a different perspective as we celebrate tonight that we haven't really talked about yet. I want you to think about the effect that the WilmerHale Legal Services Center experience has had on the more than 4,500 students who've gone through the program. Some of them are here tonight in the room representing what that experience has inspired, and they've gone on to do incredible, amazing things. But whether they've continued to stay in legal services or engaged in other pursuits, what I know and what is so important about this work is that those 4,500 students have learned to see life, experience life through the lens, through the circumstance of another. That young man who was listening to the story of the veteran and his time in Vietnam was forever changed as a result. And what heartens me most, and what should hearten you too and make you all the more committed to support and continue to support the work of the WilmerHale Legal Services Center, is to think about the fact that there are more than 4,500 students out there in the world who now have a different perspective and who have a different lens, or at least a perspective and lens that is enhanced. And that will be to the benefit of everyone, not just the clients that they served while participating in the program. The other thing I wanted to offer was the effect that WilmerHale Legal Services Center has had on the more than 40,000 clients it has served over the last 40 years. Think about that in a couple of ways. Think about how empowering it is for an individual to have somebody hear their story and feel like they were heard and listened to. And then imagine that they were given the will and the way and shown an opportunity to have a life-changing experience. To see in court even that somebody, a judge with a robe, listened to them and decided and ruled in their favor. Think about what that gave to that individual who, for far too long, was marginalized or not listened to. And I think that is really, really important, and something that I'm struck by. Because it's not only that individual, it's also that person's children or parents or brothers or sisters, whole families, whole communities affected by this work. And so I really, really appreciate it. Finally, it's safe to say that over the last couple of years, it's been a challenging time. It's been a challenging time for our democracy, for our country, for norms and understandings about the rule of law and its application. Some of it is debated in interesting academic discussions. Some of it is discussed in extensive and well-written briefs that are filed in courts all across this country. But what I am profoundly touched by day in and day out is the role of lawyers and the willingness of those in these challenging times to step up and serve. It has been incredibly, incredibly inspiring. And I think ultimately the way forward for our country is to continue to bring everyone into engagement. And that continues with the work and support of legal services. I feel it's so important that people focus and continue to focus on giving people a voice, listening to other people, fighting to hold wrongdoers, including our own government, accountable. And that sometimes includes the state. I was looking at the brochure, and one of those cases that rightly the Veterans Legal Clinic won was against the Commonwealth. Good. Continue to sue us where we need to be sued, okay? So that's how we're going to do it. One person, one case, one story at a time. I believe that transformational change in this country doesn't come from DC, it doesn't come from politicians, it doesn't come from on high. It comes from the acts of ordinary people doing their job and trying to find faith to our Constitution and basic American principles. That's what I think most people came to this law school to learn and practice. It's what I had the benefit of learning and practicing while at Hale and Dorr, WilmerHale. I still call it Hale and Dorr, Jack, I'm sorry. Sorry, Susan. But I just want to tell you that I think it's profoundly important. I'm honored to be able to be here tonight to celebrate the work of WilmerHale Legal Services Center. I look forward to many, many decades of continued success and opportunity to truly go out and do what folks like Blake are doing, which is to change the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney General Healey. Remarkable words and truly inspiring. Thank you for your message and for all you do for the Commonwealth and for the nation. So I am going to offer some closing remarks, if you'll indulge me. They will be short, and I'm going to tell you where our reception is down the stairs in a moment. But let me just say a few things as we close. Whether you were also in Jamaica Plain today, participating in the discussion roundtables, or you've joined us just for this evening, or both, we hope the day has provided meaning for you. The goal, and indeed Attorney General Healey was exactly correct, was not to have a party. It was certainly to mark some milestones, but also to ask important questions and to wrestle with challenging answers. And so we hope you take with you a renewed dedication to civil legal services and the pursuit of justice. And more than that, we hope you take with you some innovative ideas or some questions about inherited wisdom, or perhaps some new ideas about potential coalitions or alliances, or perhaps fresh perspectives about how law schools and clinical educators can more directly engage the challenges of the day. Or perhaps you've acquired a revised understanding of what Gary and Jeanne's original vision might mean for the current moment and the current generation of students and lawyers. So, in short, we look forward to the work ahead. And so, in closing, I want to thank WilmerHale for sponsoring today's incredible discussions and gathering. I want to congratulate our award recipients, our roundtable discussants who've come from near and far, and all of you. And we remain deeply grateful to WilmerHale and all of our donors and to the law school for making our work possible. Without you and our supporters and our donors of all sizes, we would not be able to do what we do. But we do not want to remain static. As many of you heard, we have to respond to a changing world and changing needs. And so it is with your support now and in the future that we will be able to do even more to create positive change and to pursue justice for vulnerable communities. So, thank you. The work ahead is important, and I invite you to head down the stairs or to take the elevator to the hallways just below this room, where we have hors d'oeuvres and cocktails and drinks, and I wish you a pleasant evening and a good weekend and safe travels. Thank you, everyone.